LeAnn signed a record deal with Curb Records in Nashville that included Wilbur as her record producer. However, with Shania and Faith taking over country music, not everyone was convinced LeAnn was the next big thing.
It was a joke within the company, it was a joke within town. A 13-year-old girl that yodels, and the idea that Wilbur was going to be the producer.
Wilbur really worked hard to try to bring the original version of Blue up to the level where we could get it played on country radio.
Even with a CD that now met industry standards, there were still obstacles to overcome. By 1996, Blue's traditional country sound made some question whether radio would play it.
I said I want Blue released. I think that's gonna be, it's different. It's nothing, no one's heard anything like this in years.
There was people that loved it, there was people that hated it, and there was people that would call in going, get that thing off the radio.
Well, we could only get 5 stations to play Blue. But those 5 stations had so much reaction that it forced the record to debut number 49 on the Billboard chart.
When you heard the record, when it came out of the radio speakers, you knew that there wasn't going to be any stopping it.
When you first hear the song Blue, it stops you in your tracks. It's timeless, it's powerful.
She did exactly what the song needed. And no, I don't think anybody else could do it like her.
It was just so incredible to hear this little bitty kid with that kind of vocal control.
I remember people saying the first time they heard it on the radio, they had to pull over. In fact, Patsy's husband told me that he had to pull over on the side of the road because it was so eerie how that reminded him of her. And I've had tons of people tell me that they just had to pull over for a second and go, what's that?
In July 1996, LeAnn knocked Shania off the top of the charts. The CD Blue sold 124,000 units in its first week and went on to reach the 7 million mark, the largest selling debut album by a female in country music.
13-year-old LeAnn Rimes' first single, Blue, became an instant hit.
It hit so fast, it was just a whirlwind. It's like you're caught up in a tornado.
It's just amazing, it really is.
I mean, it was just like so much to learn so quickly.
I was doing radio show after radio show and doing every interview possible.
And her dad's trying to be the bus driver and be the management.
National television shows wanted her. Shows that most of our country artists would give their left arm to do. All those shows wanted LeAnn at the same time.
Throughout 1996, we watched LeAnn Rimes become one of the major forces in the American entertainment industry.
LeAnn's fairy tale career climbed even higher in early 1997 when she was nominated for a Best New Artist Grammy, a category that no country artist had ever won.
Everybody was like, you're not gonna win, so don't. I mean, flat out told me you're not gonna win, so don't. I'm like, should I think of anything to say? Nah.
LeAnn Rimes.
She was so surprised and so happy.
Oh my gosh, I never expected this at all. This award means
That sent her into this kind of realm of celebrity that no one could have predicted.
I was just in shock, and I didn't know what was going on, and that just catapulted my career into something completely different, a totally new world.
Coming up, LeAnn's totally new world takes a dark turn.
What no one knows is that behind the scenes, her parents' marriage is falling apart.
And later, Daddy's little girl grows up.
And people thought that that was the side of my boob, and it wasn't. It was my hand, people.
When CMT Inside Fame continues. By 1997, LeAnn Rimes' CD Blue had become the largest selling debut album by a female in the history of country music.
She is America's fastest growing entertainment brand, according to one magazine writer. She cannot miss. Every album she puts out goes straight to the top.
We ended up having to put out some of the records that she did when she was 11 that were on that demonstration album.
Curb cobbled together 2 albums. The Early Years debuted at #1 on both the country and pop charts. And You Light Up My Life inspirational songs became the first CD ever to debut at #1 on the country, pop, and Christian charts. LeAnn was becoming a marketer's dream.
Don't ever lose that light in your eyes. Don't ever lose that light in your eyes.
She has a television movie in which she's starring in coming out. She's endorsing everything from milk to cell phones. She's posing for covers of every magazine. She gives these standard quotes about what a fairy tale life she's living.
I'm taking everything in and just enjoying everything because it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I mean, to be a new artist, you're only new once, you know?
LeAnn's family business, headed by Father Wilbur and partner Lyle Walker, loved what she was doing too, selling huge amounts of concert tickets by constant touring.
She wanted to do every show under the sun, and consequently, her agent was more than happy to book her.
She was having a ball. She did enjoyed it and loved the applause.
But life in the fast lane was starting to take its toll.
What no one knows is that behind the scenes, her parents' marriage is falling apart. Wilbur has apparently fallen in love with another woman who is riding on the bus with them.
I think the strains of the business had a lot to do with it, but we tried very, very hard to keep it together for LeAnn.
They argued a lot, and there was a lot of tension between everybody.
Her mom and her dad are going through this ugly divorce, and she's stuck in the middle of it.
I didn't want my mom to hurt anymore. I didn't want my dad to hurt anymore, and I remember him telling me, my dad, and I said, fine, please, do what you need to do.
To make matters worse, the critics began taking aim at country's new little princess.
When I was 13 and I read a couple of things, and I'm like, oh no, this is the end of me, because a critic doesn't like what I do.
It was at the time of her parents' divorce that the music critics really started taking pot shots at her for everything. Her music, her appearance. She was too pudgy, her hair was too frizzy, she was too Christian, she was too pop. You know, and keep in mind, she was just a kid.
One minute they're criticizing her for being too country with Blue. The next minute they're criticizing her for doing a Christian album like You Light Up My Life, and then the next minute they're criticizing her for being too pop.
Let's get on something to talk about. How about love?
LeAnn took refuge in a tour with Brian White. She had been a fan of the 90s heartthrob for years.
We were very close and very good friends, and so yeah, I guess I had a slight bit of a crush and a slight bit of a weird, interesting relationship. You know, I guess I was into the older guys.
It was kind of like high school on wheels, but it was a blast. It was by far the most fun I've ever had in a touring experience.
We did 118 shows together, so you can only imagine being out with someone that you were that close with for 118 shows.
The constant touring, while exhilarating in the beginning, began to wear down the fragile teenager.
She just collapsed from fatigue, but some, you know, those were definitely big wake-up calls.
People who would see her breaking down and crying, and they sensed that it was not just the standard adolescent moodiness.
And I was doing radio show after radio show and making every phone call in the world and doing every interview possible, and it was 20/20 and 48 hours and this, and you know, whatever. I mean, it was just everything that was possible was coming my way.
In retrospect, I think everyone believes that she did too much.
Belinda told me, she told Cindy and me, she said, I'm worried about my daughter.
I just want to say, okay, this is enough. Let's call it quits for a while, but you can't always do that.
Under the strain of road weariness, the constant sniping of critics, and her parents' breakup, the last thing LeAnn needed was more turmoil. But shortly after moving to Nashville, she found herself in the center of yet another storm.
Jerry Bruckheimer came to me to do the song for Con Air.
Jerry Bruckheimer was a Hollywood producer looking for a soundtrack for his new movie, Con Air. Songwriter Diane Warren was pitching songs for the Disney film and ran into LeAnn at a Los Angeles restaurant.
She introduced herself and she said, you have to come with me right now to my studio. You have to record some demos. And so I did, and How Do I Live was one of them. And she had already pitched that to Jerry Bruckheimer, and he turned the song down. And with my voice on it, he fell in love with the song.
They wanted LeAnn Rimes to sing How Do I Live, and she recorded it. And we made the record, and it was great.
How do I get through one night without you?
The Disney folks heard it and just decided that they were looking for a more adult singer. So they got Trisha Yearwood to sing it.
I need you in my arms, need you to hold. You're my world.
Within a week or so, some of the same musicians were recording the same song with Trisha.
They also got a copy of my version that night.
We all got mad.
I was totally blown away by the fact that this could happen.
With Trisha Yearwood's version on the soundtrack, MCA rushed the song to country radio, ahead of LeAnn. LeAnn felt betrayed.
Diane had promised me the song no matter what. It was my song. And then Jerry said we were going to go through this whole lawsuit.
So I said, why don't we go hire all the independent pop promotion people and take our own staff, and why don't we go break the record pop?
And I said, well, I've never had a song on Top 40 radio. They don't even know who I am.
LeAnn's people put it out. It goes up the pop charts. Trisha's people put it out. That one goes up the country charts. And so you got dueling versions of hit songs just going straight up the charts at the same time.
Both versions received Grammy nominations for Best Female Country Vocal in 1998. When the award was announced, it was Trisha's name they called. However, when the dust had settled by the fall of 1998, LeAnn's rendition became not only a bigger hit than Trisha's, it became the biggest hit of LeAnn's career. It sold 3 million copies and stayed on the Billboard charts for a record 69 weeks, longer than any single in the history of the charts.
It was a club hit, it was a radio hit. I mean, it was everywhere.
I'm happy with what happened.